Hello and good evening from London and good day from Houston, Texas and Oklahoma. Mr. Kris Austin is in Oklahoma and we're going to be talking to him this evening about book distribution, digital downloads and all sorts of goodies for authors. Because he is the CEO of Draft2Digital, a very fine book distributor who is doing lots of interesting things in the book space. And speaking to him on behalf of the Alliance of Independent Authors this evening is Jim, who needs no introduction, our Watchdog Supremo, who keeps an eye on all author services all over the world, really. Good evening, Jim, and good evening, Kris.
Hi, Orna. Hi, Kris.
And of course, it's afternoon there where you are, but let's just begin by having a chat, Kris, about Draft2Digital. Can you tell us a little bit about when you guys started, why you started, and what you do?
Yes, we started this company in the early parts of 2012, and we were started by Aaron Pogue, who's a self-published author. He does fantasy novels, and he was going through the process of being self-published and decided it was a little bit harder than it should be, or a lot harder than it should be. And so we put together this company to make it a lot easier for authors, and we released at the very end, right before Christmas in 2012, and in that time period, about 20 months now, we've got 35,000 books, over 8,000 authors. We succeed in this by making everything as easy and streamlined as possible for the author. It's very intuitive interface, and one thing that we focus on and we make so important is do what we can to give the authors more time to write their books, instead of having to spend their time formatting and distributing and converting their books. There are a lot of things involved in getting your book out to the public, and so we help with all those pieces related to formatting, conversion, and distribution. And those can be very time-consuming parts of publishing your book. And so we built a web interface and a site design around great customer support and ease of use, to give the author more time to spend doing what they like doing. So.
Okay, fantastic. And specifically in terms of, say, conversion, how do you make it easier? And you don't actually convert the book, do you, or how does it work?
Sure. When it comes to converting your book, there's really two aspects we're talking about. One is formatting, to make it, which is the layout. How does the chapter titles look, and what does the text look like when someone's reading it, and just the flow. And then there's conversion, which is getting it from generally Word document into a format that the digital devices, so your Kindles, your Nooks, your Apple devices, can read. And our tool does both formatting and converting, and by using, basically what we say is we learn your style guide. Our system is sophisticated enough that you upload your Word document and it discovers what you meant as your chapter titles, what you meant for your title page and your copyright page, and then uses that information to format it and make a really decent format of your book for free. And then it goes and converts that into an actual converted product that will then look good on e-readers. And our tool actually makes very specific changes to each e-reader, because every e-reader has their own quirks and their own issues. And sometimes they may look good on an Apple device, but look really bad on a Kindle, for instance. And we work all those little headaches out and make it look good everywhere. So.
Great. I'll be handing you over to Jim now for the in-depth sort of questions, but just before I do that, typically then how long, a writer turns up to the site, hasn't been on there before, has a Word manuscript complete, so typically how long will it take before the book is formatted, converted, and available for sale?
Generally speaking, most new users to the site can get their book into our system within about 30 minutes. That's from sign up and running it. They've never used a service like ours before. And then our system starts distributing it right away. And generally speaking, it'll be dependent on the distributors, but we'll have it sent to the distributors within about 30 minutes to an hour. And then Kobo's the fastest. They're generally live in 4 to 6 hours. And Barnes & Noble, you'll be live within 2 days tops. And Apple has been about a 1-day turnaround at this time. So you can go from to our site live everywhere within no more than 2 days.
Interesting. So they've all definitely improved their turnaround time then, because it even a short few months ago, I think it was significantly longer than that.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Over to you, Jim. I'll let you two boys talk technical there for a while I listen.
Okay, great. Hi, Kris. Good to see you again.
Hey, you too.
So I had a question. When I did try out your system, as you know, when I wrote the blog post, and I think it's great. I love the ease of use of the whole website, and I think that's one of the best things about it. I don't remember if I tried it, but for example, I know I use images for each chapter heading. So, for example, on my chapters, when it's in third person, I use a particular image, like a gun, and maybe a bullet on another chapter. Does your conversion process have the ability to do images for chapter headings?
It does. It's a little tricky. There's some technical ways to make it work, and it kind of depends on where you start at. But we do have plenty of people that do that, and our system can detect that. The biggest problem comes down to how the table of contents gets labeled, because normally it's in an image, and so we don't actually know it's called Chapter 1 if the image is Chapter 1. But if you include your own table of contents, then the table of contents will be labeled correctly, and the images will still be there to label your chapter.
Oh, excellent. Okay, that's good to know. Last time we spoke, you mentioned you were pursuing deals with Google and Flipkart and a few others. Any progress on those?
Yes. At this time, we actually have an agreement with Flipkart. They're still going through our beta phase where we're testing distribution. We have a lot of requirements for speed of turnaround time from our distributors, reporting, and a few other things like that, because the self-published market really wants fast turnaround times on, say, price changes, especially price changes. But if they update their descriptions or put new manuscripts out there, a fast turnaround time is important to self-publishers. And so we're working out just a few kinks with Flipkart. There's a few accounting issues that come up because it's a different country, but we're in our beta phase of testing with them right now. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I know. Flipkart they are the biggest ebook distributor in India, isn't that right?
Yes, sir, that is correct. And it's a pretty large market of English readers over there.
Yeah, excellent. What do you, now, here's one thing I know that I see as maybe an area of improvement for all of the distributors. So, for example, if I put my book up and I decide to price it at $2.99 or $4.99 or whatever, and that's where maybe the U.S. and the U.K. market, I say, okay, that's where the price point for me is. But then I'd really like to sell it a lot less at Flipkart maybe, or in other markets outside of the U.S. and U.K. Is there any way to do that yet with Draft2Digital, or do you have any plans to enable something like that?
That's a great question. We actually get that. We call it territory pricing.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's actually in our development pipeline right now. We haven't yet set a date for a release on that, but it is a frequent request, and we definitely want to get it done because, once again, it comes down to control. A self-published author gets a lot of control, and we definitely want to be able to give them as much control as they want. So.
Yeah, I think, for example, with Apple, I would prefer actually to go, with somebody like Draft2Digital or any distributor through places. But sometimes, you want that control. Like Apple has 51 countries, I think, and you can set prices by local currency and by country in each one of them and schedule promotions. But with a distributor, you can't do that. So if you guys could figure out a way to be more flexible there, I think it would be a huge benefit to indie authors.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Whenever you add flexibility, you can add some complications, and so we spend a lot of time. Yeah, we spend a lot of time on our user interface design. We have a pretty long pipeline on making sure the user interface will be easy and intuitive. And I suspect most people won't use that advanced tool, but we want it to be there for those that know how to use it. So.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. There was another question too, and I don't remember where I picked this up, but someone said that when you submit, whether it's you or whomever submits price changes to Barnes & Noble, if it's done before noon, it has a chance of getting actually changed that day, but if it's done afternoon, you're probably looking at the next day. Is that correct, or do you know anything about that?
Currently, with the way we work with Barnes & Noble, they have a pickup time once a day for the stuff that we send them. Mm-hmm. And so it's sometime in the morning. It's it's hard to know exactly what time.
Okay.
If you get it in before that pickup time, you're likely to have your price change go through that same day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered because I had noticed with of course that's very important when you do things like BookBub promotions. If you might want to get your price back up to the normal price as quickly as possible. And I did notice before that if a price change submitted early in the morning, it took effect pretty quickly. But if it was early afternoon, it usually was the next day. So that explains that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's something we're working with them to hopefully improve over time. So, yeah.
Okay. What about any thoughts you've got, or what are your thoughts about the rest of the international market? I mean, I know the U.S. and the U.K. market have been very strong for ebooks. The rest of the world seems to be catching up, and they seem to be on their real big push for ebook growth. What are some of the other big markets? I know Germany's a good one, but where do you see the rest of the growth coming from in the ebook market for English language speaking?
Sure. For English speaking, there's as you mentioned, U.S. and U.K. Germany's great, especially in some genres. We know about India, but then you also have Australia and New Zealand are fast growing markets, especially for Apple. Apple has a really good presence in Australia. But beyond those obvious ones, there's you have some countries in Africa that speak English. Those may still be a couple years out, depending on how technology, but we're watching them closely. It's a complicated market to really see where those countries are going to be in the future. But right now, I strongly recommend people pay attention to Australia, especially get in Apple if you're not in Apple, because Australia, they read a lot of books. And the German market's actually a really good one, especially if you're in the sci-fi fantasy genres. Strongly encourage you to make sure your books are well presented in Germany.
Okay. I did notice that Australia and New Zealand do have a very strong Apple presence, as well as Kobo, of course. Kobo has been strong there. But Apple seems to be, getting into more of it. They have, of course, 51 countries, which is huge. I think Amazon has 11 or 12 territories, so that's a big difference. And that's even more reason why I like the ability with Apple to manage your prices per territory. That's so important, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of those countries.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, a lot of those countries that Apple has, they're not English speaking. So it's another area I encourage authors to look at, is getting their books translated to some of those non-English speaking countries, especially because Apple gives you easy distribution to lots of countries through Apple.
Of course, everybody's heard of all the the big troubles with Amazon and big publishing and the negotiations going on. Do you see any trend? Do you see the big publishers turning more towards direct sales? And if so, how do you think that will affect indies?
You're talking about the traditional publishers like Big Five?
Yeah, the traditional publishing companies, whether they're big or mid-sized or whatever. I know that HarperCollins has some direct sales set up in the UK, and others are reaching out and trying different apps to do things. But with all the trouble that they're having with Amazon, I know they're not going to ditch Amazon, but are they going to start broadening and covering their bases and trying to get direct sales going?
Sure. For me, this is kind of a question I approach as a reader. I read a lot of books myself, and I don't see myself going to publishers directly to find my books. It's the question is, where are the readers going to be? Where are the readers going to go to find books? I don't think of publishers when I think of books. I think of authors, and then who's the most convenient? So these days with the digital technology, what are you used to? Are you used to your Kindles? Are you used to your iPhone? That's, I think, where people are going to get their books. I think it's fine and great for the publishers to go direct. I mean, anywhere to sell more books is probably good for everyone. But I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in what an Amazon or Kobo or Apple sales. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. What about, I've heard a little bit of talk about Apple's coming out with their new operating system next week, supposedly, and I think on all the new systems, iBooks will be pre-installed, so people won't even have to download it. Do you think that'll have any effect? Are more people going to start reading on iBooks? They've got about 800 million devices out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's no way it's going to hurt. The question boils down to if people being presented an icon is going to be enough for them to open it and realize it's there. And I think it will. I think more people are going to be reading on their Apple devices than they were before, just because there's now an icon that lets them know they can. A lot of people may not be aware that they can download digital books, and
I agree.
To see it. Yeah.
I know. I know there's some people have pretty strong preferences. They like the iBooks app better than the Kindle app or the Nook app. And so that can make a difference. One big question I had is, without question, I think everybody knows that the single biggest hurdle facing not just indie authors, but any author that doesn't get a big advertising budget is visibility. Is there anything that Draft2Digital, can do or is planning on doing to kind of help that visibility, to help indies get recognized by the readers?
It's a great question, and it's a very good point. The hardest part is definitely making sure your books are visible to everybody. And one of the first things you want to do is first make sure you have a good product, or release a good product. And then you want to make sure it looks good so people aren't distracted by the formatting and the conversion. Get through those hurdles, and then from there, there are a lot of options. Your pricing is going to be really important for it to show up. Your keyword placements and your BISAC categories. So these are how the book industry categorizes your books. And what we do, we ask you a lot of questions about your book. We ask you about the description, about keywords that you think are important to identify the book, about subject categories as like fantasy, and if you want to get as specific as you can, we make sure that information gets to all the distributors so that they can make their search algorithms better, make your book more visible. We send them information. If you have a book that's part of a series, we make sure all the distributors know those are part of the same series. It's very likely if someone reads the first book in your series, they're going to want to know about the second one. And the metadata is very, very important. Just making sure all the distributors are aware of all the important parts of the book. That's your distributor's job, is to make sure they have the detail they need to market your book. Beyond that,
could I come in there for 1 second, Kris? I don't know. Are you hearing an echo on Kris's speaking, Jim?
No, I'm not.
You're hearing. Okay, you're hearing it fine. Okay, carry on. I'm just getting an echo on everything you're saying, but it's obviously just on this side.
Okay.
Carry on.
I am hearing the echo too. I'm not sure whose computer is echoing.
You're hearing it as you're speaking, which is quite disconcerting. You don't have headphones you could plug in?
Oh, I think since Jim's not here, maybe Jim's not here. Maybe. But I don't have headphones with me. I'll turn them with me.
Okay, let's carry on.
The other part that we help with marketing is we actually work directly with all the distributors, their own merchandising departments, and we send them lists of books that are doing well or that we think should do well. We do that regularly. We work with all of the different merchandising departments of the different distributors. And that allows us to help books along. And there's also the pre-order mechanism, getting your book up for sale before you release your book. So I strongly recommend that if you know a release date for your book, that you get your book up and available as soon as possible. Sorry, this echo is kind of bothering me too.
Yeah, it's now on my end also.
It's quite disturbing, yeah. Let me just see if I can do it. I don't really know what's going on. Are you able to continue? We'll see if we can continue from where we're finished. Or is it too difficult? Do you want to try calling you back?
I can keep going. I just tried to ignore it a little bit.
Not coming through on your iPhone there, Jim.
No, well, there we go.
Okay, I think it's gone.
Okay, it's definitely better.
Great, okay. We will edit out this little interlude for those of you who are listening to us live. Just thank you for bearing with us. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so yeah, you're talking about the really, really important question of merchandising. So please do keep going.
Sure. The pre-orders, getting your book up on pre-order, so that your users can buy your books before your readers can buy your books before the release date. A lot of people buy books on an impulse buy, so they may finish the first book in your series, and they'll go look immediately for your second book, and if it's up for pre-order, they're likely to buy it, and they may forget, if it's 3 months down the road. And we do have some other plans that I can't really announce yet to help authors build a readership. And I think that people will be very excited about these things. Anything to reduce the author's workload, and it's going to be really really helpful. And we have a couple of really good ones, I think, very beneficial to the authors. And I can't quite announce them yet because it'll be a couple more months.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, we're looking forward to that. No, I agree about pre-orders. I think pre-orders are excellent. One of the things I think, just as a note to authors, before you just throw your book out there on a pre-order, make sure you can deliver. I think readers would be upset if you promise a pre-order, say, on September 1st, and all of a sudden it's not there. So whatever date you put on that delivery, make sure you can get there and meet it.
Absolutely, because authors are notorious for thinking they're going to get it before they actually are. If you don't deliver for Amazon, for example, you will be off pre-orders for a year.
Yes.
So it is a strict deadline, and it can, I know some people are using it as a deadline to kind of to meet it, but yeah, be careful out there. Good advice.
The other thing I really like about Draft2Digital, Kris, is the fact that you have the no charge for changes. and I think you know, I know that you probably don't like having all those changes made, but for authors, it's important to be able to make a change to fix a mistake or to adjust a price or whatever without any charges associated. I think that's excellent. So kudos on that end of it.
Actually, and we don't mind. Our system's completely automated, so if you want to experiment, go for it. And our tool will actually monitor your changes to make sure they went through. We have a very proactive approach. So if you go make a price change, we'll watch it. If it doesn't go through fast enough, we're alerted to that fact, and we can track it down. But generally speaking, 99% of the changes people do go through automatically without us having to worry about it. So
good.
You're not going to burden us. So.
I had another question. This is just a speculation question, but I'd love to hear your take on it. And I think everybody, you know, kind of presumes that Nook will be bought by someone. You know, how do you view that, and what kind of changes do you think it might bring to the industry as a result?
Yeah, we have conversations about that one around here a lot. I'm going to say it would help the industry always to have big players, multiple big players in the market. This is good for the authors. It's good for the readers. Obviously, it's good for aggregators. I'm not going to lie. The more places to go to, the more beneficial we are.
Right.
But in the end, there needs to be competition in this market, and I think if Barnes & Noble doesn't feel like they can do it on their own, with Nook, I think a big player buying Nook and investing the necessary money could be big. And there's a couple of potential people out there, I would say, that would be willing to buy Nook. I mean, an obvious one is Microsoft already having some ownership in Nook. Perhaps they'll do it, and if they do it, my background's in IT. I work with Microsoft. They can execute on anything that they want to do. They got the money, and I think it would be a good thing.
How about any thoughts? I know the stock market is abuzz with the IPO coming up of Alibaba, and they're a gigantic e-commerce company, you know, in China and across the world. They're just coming to the U.S. market. You know, I don't think they have ebooks yet, but do you have any thoughts about Alibaba entering that ebook market and what effect that might have? I mean, they potentially are a gigantic competitor to Amazon in all the other areas.
You know, I hadn't really looked at it from that perspective. Yeah, I have to think about that one. I don't have a good answer for you right now.
Okay.
What about China as an English language market? Is our book selling in China?
I think you were asking about China and the English language market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I think China is another good market for English. I mean, we did mention it earlier. It's hard to get books into China right now very effectively. But I assume that we change in the future. So.
Okay. How are we doing? Have you more questions, Jim?
I did have another question or two. One of them regarded the subscription services, Kris. I know you have an arrangement with Scribd, and I never know exactly how to pronounce their name. I'm assuming it's Scribd. But, are you pursuing anything with the Oyster?
Yes. We have been talking with them. You know, these things always take a lot longer than we want them to.
Sure.
The subscription service, in general, I'm a huge fan of as a reader, and I think authors, again, it's just another way to get your books out there to people. Scribd has been a very, very impressive sales growth in the very short time that we've been distributing with them, and I think Oyster also would have a very similar growth. But yeah, distribution agreements take a lot of time to get worked out, and I'm always amazed at how long it takes. And we're constantly working with many different talks with different distributors, and they are on that list.
So I've been extremely impressed with Scribe's customer service and how quickly they respond to everything, really. You know, what are they doing, or is there anything they're doing special or different to help promote indies?
Not that I'm aware of. They haven't, you know, we haven't worked out anything specific yet. There's been some talk of having some promotional type stuff, but I haven't seen that stuff come to fruition yet. I mean, and I don't know the timeline, unfortunately.
You know, I would think it would really be a natural fit with, you know, they kind of walk the fence line with their model. You know, if too many readers grab the high-priced books, Scribe is in trouble. You know, if they don't read enough, they're not going to get the subscriptions. And I would think that the lower-priced indie books would be a natural for them to promote, to balance off perhaps the readers grabbing all of the high-priced traditional books.
I agree. Yeah, completely agree. In fact, it was one of the easiest things when we were talking to them about being able to distribute books to them. It was really easy to get the indie books in there because of the lower price point. You know, across our library, our average price is $3.24. That is significantly lower than the traditional market.
Yeah,
and it's because the self-publishers, they can the book at a cheaper price than would. So,
okay, good. Any other thoughts you've got on where the industry is going, where the distribution end of it is going?
I actually expect there to be a lot more small special purpose websites to show up to sell books. I expect there to be some platform that's going to show up to make it easier. There's going to be a lot more authors selling books right on their websites, or people making genre-specific websites. You have lots of forums out there that talk about sci-fi books, for instance, and I can see a mechanism popping up that makes it easy for all these different communities to sell books. And I think that would be a very big advantage to self-publishers because they're going to be very agile and very flexible to take advantage of that shift.
I agree. Yeah, I agree that has to happen sooner or later.
I agree.
Okay, good.
And maybe finally then, what are the plans for Draft2Digital going forward?
I'm sorry, there's a big echo. I think you asked me what are the plans for Draft2Digital moving forward?
Yes, and actually we have a question coming in about India, which is just before we get to the final question about your own situation. Can you hear me okay?
Your echo is really bad, but the Draft2Digital moving forward, our biggest focus right now is music distributors, but ones that are going to pay off. We don't want people getting excited about ones that won't sell any books. And a focus on tool for authors to help them market their books, get more visibility. And so you're going to see a big improvement in the next 6 months in some of the offerings that we have. Not necessarily they're not going to cost money. They're going to be things that make it easier by the click of a button. That's how our system works. So you click a button, next thing you know, we do stuff, and that's the focus. We have a couple of big ones coming up, and they're focused around helping authors have more visibility.
Okay. That's great. I'm really sorry about the tech here, and it's been so difficult. The information has been absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you can hear me, but what I'm going to do is probably get our conversation transcribed in writing. So we'll be able to, if we can't work with the sound quality, to improve it and get the echo, we'll get it into print form so we can circulate the information, which has been really fantastic. So if I could just say thank you so much for coming along and talking to us about your plans and also about book distribution generally. And we may have a question or two that we can pass on to you by email from our members. But for now, thanks very much. And thank you to Jim also, who is the only person who seems to speak clearly here for some reason. I don't know why. So my thanks to you both.
Thanks, Kris.
Sure. Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Orna.